Our brains are remarkable machines, capable of storing decades of memories, solving problems, and shaping who we are. Yet many of us unknowingly engage in daily routines that slowly erode this strength. Memory loss does not usually arrive overnight. Instead, it builds gradually, fed by hidden habits that chip away at the brain's resilience. People often assume memory decline is just part of aging, but research shows that lifestyle choices often play a bigger role than age itself. This means that the way you live, the patterns you follow, and the habits you form can either protect your memory or sabotage it without you realizing. The scary truth is that some of the most damaging routines feel normal, even harmless, yet they silently rob you of focus, clarity, and recall. The modern lifestyle has made these silent saboteurs common. In a world that praises busyness and multitasking, encourages fast food over mindful meals, glorifies long work hours while dismissing sleep, and floods us with constant digital stimulation, the brain takes the hit. Each of these behaviors contributes to weakened connections between brain cells, reduced blood flow to vital regions, and increased toxic buildup that accelerates decline. When the brain's architecture is compromised in this way, memory is usually the first casualty. People start forgetting names, misplacing items, or struggling to concentrate, assuming it is just stress or aging, when in fact it is the direct result of harmful patterns. What makes this even more dangerous is how subtle the damage feels at first. Missing a night of good sleep does not cause instant memory loss, but it begins a cycle where the brain struggles to consolidate new information. Eating sugary snacks or processed meals does not immediately erase memories, but it inflames the body and weakens brain cells over time. Constantly switching between phone notifications and tasks feels productive, but in reality, it fractures attention, making it harder for the brain to store experiences properly. Chronic stress feels like part of life, but it floods the brain with cortisol, a hormone that actually shrinks the hippocampus, the region most vital for memory. None of these changes scream for attention in the moment, yet together they create a downward spiral that people only notice when memory struggles become frequent and frustrating. The danger of ignoring these habits lies in the brain's delicate balance. Just as a muscle atrophies when not exercised, the brain weakens when it is overstimulated, undernourished, or deprived of rest. Neurons rely on oxygen, nutrients, and electrical firing patterns to thrive. If the supply is disrupted or the signals become chaotic, the networks responsible for recall break down. This is why lifestyle has such a powerful effect on memory. Small daily decisions compound into lasting consequences, either strengthening or destroying the very circuits that allow you to remember. Thankfully, memory decline driven by poor habits is not irreversible. The brain is plastic, meaning it can adapt, rebuild, and strengthen even after years of wear. This ability, called neuroplasticity, is the reason some people who change their lifestyle regain sharper focus and improved recall. When damaging habits are replaced with supportive ones, new neural connections form, and memory begins to recover. This means the habits destroying your brain do not have to define your future. Awareness is the first step, because only when you recognize these saboteurs can you begin to replace them with behaviors that nourish the mind. The 4 habits most responsible for memory destruction will be explored in detail. Each one represents a common behavior so deeply woven into modern living that many people accept it as normal. Yet these are precisely the patterns that weaken brain power daily. By uncovering how they work and the science behind their impact, you will be able to see clearly what has been undermining your memory. More importantly, you will learn the simple but powerful replacements that not only stop the damage, but actually reverse it. The path to stronger memory is not hidden in miracle cures or expensive treatments, but in rethinking the choices you make every day. At its core, the journey to restoring memory is about regaining control. Your brain is not doomed to decline simply because birthdays keep passing. Instead, it reflects the quality of the environment you create for it. When destructive habits are left unchecked, they silently drain vitality, but when healthier routines are adopted, the brain rewards you with clarity, focus, and lasting recall. By understanding the habits that erode memory strength, you gain the power to rebuild it. Each step away from destruction is also a step toward renewal, and each choice you make is either a deposit or a withdrawal from your memory bank. The following exploration will reveal exactly where those withdrawals happen and how to start making deposits again. Sleep is often treated as optional in a busy world, something to cut short for extra work, late-night entertainment, or endless scrolling. Yet when it comes to memory, sleep is not a luxury, but a necessity. The brain depends on deep, restorative rest to process experiences, store knowledge, and clear away toxins that accumulate during the day. Without it, even the sharpest mind begins to falter. People may think of sleep as just downtime, but in reality, the brain is more active at night than most realize. While the body lies still, neurons fire in complex patterns that replay the day's events, locking them into long-term storage. When this process is interrupted, memories remain fragile and easily forgotten. That is why poor sleep is often one of the earliest and most damaging habits leading to memory decline. The relationship between sleep and memory is rooted in how the brain organizes information. During the day, experiences are temporarily held in short-term memory. This is like a notepad that fills quickly and can easily be erased. At night, especially during deep stages of sleep, the brain transfers this information into long-term memory, where it becomes more stable and accessible. Missing out on these stages is like forgetting to hit the save button on a document. You may have had the experience of reading something late at night only to find you cannot recall it the next day. That is not a flaw in your ability to learn, but a direct result of disrupted sleep cycles. Equally important is the brain's cleaning system, known as the glymphatic system. This network clears out waste proteins, including those linked to Alzheimer's disease, while you sleep. It functions like a nighttime janitor, washing away debris that builds up during the day. When sleep is shortened or fragmented, this cleaning process is incomplete, leaving harmful toxins behind. Over time, the accumulation of these proteins contributes to memory loss and cognitive decline. Thus, failing to prioritize sleep not only blocks new memories from forming, but also accelerates the breakdown of brain cells themselves. The problem is magnified by modern culture. Many people sacrifice sleep to meet deadlines, stay up with devices, or catch up on shows. Caffeine and energy drinks are used to mask fatigue, but they cannot replace the brain's need for rest. In fact, reliance on stimulants often disrupts sleep further, creating a cycle of exhaustion and forgetfulness. Even when people do get enough hours, the quality of sleep is often poor due to constant interruptions, exposure to blue light before bed, or inconsistent schedules. These disruptions keep the brain from entering the deep stages it needs most, leaving memory consolidation incomplete. The signs of sleep deprivation on memory are easy to spot once you know them. Forgetting simple tasks, struggling to recall names, misplacing objects, or feeling foggy during conversations often trace back to poor rest. Some people notice they can still function on little sleep, but functioning is not the same as thriving. The brain may manage basic tasks, but it loses the efficiency needed for sharp focus, problem solving, and storing new information. Over time, this dulls creativity, slows learning, and makes it harder to retain even important details. The good news is that memory begins to improve once sleep habits are corrected. Building a brain-boosting sleep routine is less about perfection and more about consistency. Going to bed and waking at the same time every day trains the body's internal clock, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep. Creating a dark, quiet, and cool environment signals the brain it is time for rest. Limiting screens before bed prevents blue light from interfering with melatonin production, the hormone that guides sleep. Simple rituals like reading a book, meditating, or taking slow breaths help transition from the stress of the day to the calm of the night. Nutrition also plays a role in supporting quality sleep. Heavy meals, caffeine, and alcohol before bedtime interfere with deep rest. On the other hand, magnesium-rich foods such as nuts or leafy greens, or calming herbal teas like chamomile, can encourage relaxation. Physical activity during the day also contributes, as exercise helps regulate the sleep cycle. However, intense workouts right before bed may stimulate the body too much, so timing matters. Small changes like these add up, giving the brain the conditions it needs to restore itself each night. Another overlooked factor is respecting the natural rhythm of sleep cycles. Most adults pass through cycles lasting about 90 minutes, with deep sleep and dreaming alternating throughout the night. Waking in the middle of a cycle often leaves people groggy, while waking at the end feels more refreshed. Tools that track sleep stages or simply aiming for consistent 7 to 9 hours improve the odds of waking at the right time. When these rhythms are honored, memory performance noticeably strengthens. Choosing to prioritize sleep is choosing to protect memory. Every hour of quality rest is an investment in sharper focus, stronger recall, and long-term brain health. Ignoring it, on the other hand, is like leaving a library unlocked in a storm, with books scattered and lost. The more consistently you protect your sleep, the more resilient your brain becomes against decline. What feels like simple rest is in fact one of the most powerful defenses you have against memory loss, and the habit of honoring it is a cornerstone of reversing decline. Food and focus are two of the most underestimated factors in the health of memory. What you eat and how you use your attention determine whether the brain stays sharp or slowly dulls over time. The modern diet, filled with sugar, processed ingredients, and unhealthy fats, quietly inflames the brain and damages the very cells responsible for recall. At the same time, the culture of constant distraction and multitasking prevents memories from ever forming deeply in the first place. Together, poor diet and fractured attention create a powerful duo of destruction, eroding brain power day after day. The encouraging truth is that, with simple changes, both can be reversed, giving the mind the nourishment and focus it needs to strengthen memory. The brain is an energy-hungry organ, using about 20% of the body's fuel despite its small size, yet not all fuel is equal. Diets high in refined sugar and processed foods flood the bloodstream with glucose spikes that overwhelm neurons. Over time, this leads to insulin resistance in the brain, a condition sometimes called type 3 diabetes. When brain cells cannot efficiently use energy, they weaken, and memory begins to fail. In addition, processed foods often contain trans fats and additives that inflame tissues and damage blood vessels. Since the brain depends on steady blood flow for oxygen and nutrients, this inflammation creates a hostile environment where neurons struggle to survive. Studies have consistently linked poor diet to higher risks of dementia and cognitive decline. Even in the short term, eating junk food has been shown to impair learning and recall. People often notice brain fog after sugary meals, struggling to concentrate or remember details. This is not just in their imagination. The hippocampus, the brain's memory hub, is highly sensitive to diet, and when inflamed it loses efficiency in storing new information. On the other hand, diets rich in whole foods, omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and vitamins provide the building blocks that strengthen synapses and protect against damage. Nutrients from fish, nuts, berries, and leafy greens directly support the creation of new neural connections, making recall easier and sharper. Just as damaging as poor nutrition is the modern addiction to multitasking, the brain is not designed to juggle multiple streams of information at once. Instead, it switches rapidly between tasks, creating the illusion of productivity. Each switch carries a cost, breaking concentration and preventing experiences from being encoded deeply into memory. When you check your phone during a conversation, for example, the details of what was said often fail to stick. This is not a failure of memory, but a failure of attention. Without focused attention, the brain never has the chance to process and save the information properly. The constant flood of notifications, messages, and media makes distraction the norm. Many people go through entire days without giving any one activity their full focus. Over time, this weakens the ability to concentrate and reduces the strength of memories formed. Information consumed while multitasking tends to be shallow, easily forgotten, and difficult to retrieve later. This is why reading an article while half listening to a podcast often leaves little trace of either. For memory to be strong, attention must be singular. The brain requires immersion to create long-lasting recall. Breaking free from this cycle requires deliberate effort. Just as the body needs nutritious food, the mind needs focused attention to thrive. One of the simplest techniques is single tasking, choosing one activity and giving it undivided focus until completion. Turning off notifications, setting aside specific times for checking messages, and creating distraction-free zones all help train the brain back toward deep concentration. Meditation and mindfulness practices strengthen this skill further, teaching the mind to notice when it wanders and gently return to the present. Over time, these habits rebuild the brain's ability to hold attention, and as attention strengthens, so does memory. Nutrition can also be reshaped step by step, replacing processed snacks with brain-friendly alternatives like nuts or fruit reduces inflammation. Choosing meals rich in omega-3, such as salmon or chia seeds, supports the flexible membranes of brain cells. Dark berries provide antioxidants that protect neurons from oxidative stress, while leafy greens supply vitamins like folate that aid in cognitive function. Even hydration plays a role, as dehydration impairs short-term memory and focus. Small, consistent changes in diet accumulate, gradually transforming the brain's environment from hostile to supportive. When combined, a nourishing diet and disciplined focus create powerful synergy. Proper nutrition provides the raw materials for memory storage, while focus ensures experiences are processed deeply enough to be stored. It is like building a library. Diet supplies the sturdy shelves and paper, while attention makes sure each book is written and placed carefully. Without the materials, the books fall apart. Without the attention, they are never written in the first place. Together, they form a system where learning, recall, and clarity flourish. The modern world may push both poor diet and constant distraction, but choosing differently is within reach. Every time you select whole foods over processed ones, or give your full attention to a task instead of splitting it, you are actively strengthening memory. These choices are not about perfection, but about shifting the balance in favor of the brain. By recognizing how food and focus shape memory, you gain the power to stop destructive patterns and replace them with supportive ones. The mind thrives on what it is fed, both nutritionally and cognitively, and by feeding it wisely, memory can be protected and even restored. Stress has become such a constant presence in daily life that many people accept it as normal, even inevitable. Yet beneath the surface, stress is one of the most powerful forces eroding memory. The brain is built to handle short bursts of pressure, the kind needed to respond to immediate challenges, but it was never designed to endure relentless, chronic stress. When the pressure never eases, the hormone cortisol floods the body, altering brain chemistry and structure. Over time, this constant state of alarm weakens the hippocampus, the region responsible for forming and retrieving memories. What begins as occasional forgetfulness can slowly grow into persistent difficulty recalling names, concentrating, or learning new skills. Cortisol is not inherently harmful. In small amounts, it sharpens focus and provides energy during emergencies. The problem arises when cortisol levels remain elevated for long periods, as happens with chronic stress from work, financial worries, or unresolved emotional strain. Under these conditions, the hippocampus is continually exposed to high levels of stress hormones, which damage neurons and even shrink the volume of the region itself. Research has shown that individuals with prolonged stress often display measurable reductions in hippocampal size, directly linked to memory problems. This physical impact underscores how damaging unmanaged stress can be to cognitive health. The effects extend beyond the hippocampus. Chronic stress also disrupts the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making, attention, and working memory. This explains why stressed individuals often find themselves distracted, disorganized, or unable to recall information under pressure. At the same time, stress enhances activity in the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, amplifying fear and anxiety. The combined effect is a brain caught in a loop where strong emotional reactions dominate while rational thought and memory retrieval weaken. In practical terms, this means stress not only makes you forgetful, but also more reactive, further feeding the cycle of tension. Another layer of damage comes from the way stress affects sleep. High cortisol levels interfere with the body's ability to fall into deep, restorative rest. As sleep suffers, so does memory, since the brain relies on nighttime cycles to consolidate experiences into long-term storage. People under chronic stress often report restless nights, frequent waking, or racing thoughts before bed. Each disrupted night compounds the problem, leaving the brain less capable of managing stress the next day and further weakening recall. The relationship between stress and sleep creates a vicious circle where one problem fuels the other. Even the immune system plays a role in this downward spiral. Prolonged stress triggers inflammation throughout the body, including the brain. Inflammatory molecules interfere with communication between neurons, slowing processing speed and dulling memory. This inflammation is not always obvious, but over months or years it quietly eats away at cognitive function. Combined with structural changes in the hippocampus and disrupted sleep, the overall effect is a steady erosion of brain strength. What might seem like harmless everyday stress is, in reality, a slow but persistent attack on memory. The hopeful truth is that stress does not have to remain in control. While eliminating it completely is impossible, mastering daily rituals to calm the mind can reverse much of the damage. Simple breathing techniques are among the most effective tools. Deep, slow breaths activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the fight-or-flight response. In just a few minutes, this practice lowers cortisol levels, slows heart rate, and creates a sense of calm that directly benefits the brain. Practiced regularly, breathing exercises build resilience, making it easier to return to balance when stress arises. Mindfulness meditation provides another powerful shield. By training attention on the present moment, it interrupts the cycle of anxious thoughts about the past or future. Studies show that consistent mindfulness practice increases the thickness of the hippocampus, suggesting that it not only protects memory, but can help restore it. Even a few minutes each day of mindful awareness, such as focusing on the sensation of walking, eating slowly, or observing thoughts without judgment, creates space for the brain to reset. Over time, this builds a buffer against stress's corrosive effects. Daily routines also influence stress management. Scheduling short breaks during work, stepping outside for natural light, or engaging in light exercise can all lower cortisol and clear mental clutter. Physical activity in particular is a potent stress reliever. Exercise stimulates the release of endorphins, improves blood flow to the brain, and even encourages the growth of new neurons in the hippocampus. Whether it is a brisk walk, yoga, or cycling, consistent movement provides protection from memory and clarity. Even small acts of self-care, such as listening to calming music, journaling, or connecting with supportive friends, reduce stress and improve memory. These practices remind the brain it is safe, signaling cortisol levels to decline. Social interaction is especially powerful, as meaningful connections lower stress hormones and enhance feelings of belonging. This emotional support creates an environment where the brain can thrive rather than constantly defend itself. The essence of protecting memory from stress lies not in eliminating pressure altogether, but in building rituals that restore balance. Every time you pause to breathe deeply, move your body, or calm your thoughts, you are repairing the damage caused by cortisol and giving the hippocampus a chance to recover. By mastering stress rather than ignoring it, you create conditions where memory can flourish again. The destructive power of chronic stress is real, but so is the brain's ability to heal when given the tools to reset. Memory decline caused by harmful habits is discouraging, but it is not a life sentence. The brain is remarkably adaptive, capable of rewiring itself when given the right conditions. This ability, known as neuroplasticity, means that even after years of damage, change is possible. The key is replacing destructive routines with habits that restore strength, clarity, and focus. By deliberately practicing behaviors that support brain health, you can slow decline, rebuild connections, and even enhance memory beyond what you thought possible. For corrective habits stand out as particularly powerful, forming a foundation for lasting mental resilience. The first is prioritizing deep restorative sleep. Sleep is the brain's reset button, the time when memories are consolidated and waste is cleared away. Without it, the mind struggles to store information and becomes foggy. Developing a sleep routine that supports memory requires more than just getting enough hours. It means creating conditions where the body naturally falls into deep stages of rest. Going to bed at the same time every night, avoiding screens before bedtime, and keeping the room cool and dark are simple but effective strategies. Even small rituals like reading a calming book or practicing slow breathing before bed help signal the brain it is time to rest. Over time, these practices restore the cycles necessary for memory storage, allowing the hippocampus to perform its role effectively. The second corrective habit is adopting a brain-fueling diet. What you eat directly influences how your neurons function. Whole foods rich in nutrients provide the building blocks for neurotransmitters and protect the brain from inflammation. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish, walnuts, and flax seeds strengthen cell membranes, making communication between neurons smoother. Antioxidant-rich berries fight oxidative stress, while leafy greens provide essential vitamins like folate that support cognitive performance. Hydration is equally critical, as even mild dehydration can impair focus and short-term memory. Shifting away from processed foods and sugars toward nutrient-dense meals is not about restriction, but about fueling the mind. Each choice to nourish rather than inflame is an investment in clear recall and sharper thinking. The third corrective habit is training focus through deliberate attention. In a world that constantly demands multitasking, reclaiming the ability to concentrate is essential. Memory is strengthened when attention is deep, because the brain encodes experiences more effectively. Simple practices like turning off notifications during work, dedicating blocks of time to single tasks, and practicing mindfulness build this ability. Even short periods of meditation strengthen the neural circuits that regulate focus, creating lasting improvements. Another effective method is active learning, taking notes by hand, teaching concepts to others, or practicing recall instead of passive review. These approaches not only increase concentration, but also create stronger, more durable memories. By choosing to give attention fully rather than scattering it, you allow the brain to build connections that last. The fourth corrective habit is mastering stress before it becomes chronic. Since cortisol erodes the hippocampus and weakens recall, reducing its influence is crucial. Building daily rituals that calm the nervous system creates resilience. Breathing deeply, practicing mindfulness, exercising regularly, and engaging in meaningful social interactions all lower stress hormones. Even small moments of pause throughout the day, stepping outside for fresh air, stretching, or listening to music signal the body to shift from fight or flight into rest and digest. Over time, these practices protect neurons from the corrosive effects of stress and restore the brain's ability to store and retrieve information. Rather than letting stress dominate, these strategies place you back in control, ensuring memory has the space to thrive. Together, these four corrective habits create a powerful framework for reversing memory loss. Each one supports the others, forming a cycle of protection and renewal. Sleep prepares the brain to consolidate experiences. Diet provides the raw materials for healthy neurons. Focus ensures information is encoded deeply, and stress management prevents hormones from eroding recall. When practiced consistently, they work in harmony, turning the tide against decline. Even those who have struggled with memory for years can experience improvement by embracing these habits. To make the shift sustainable, it helps to approach the process as a challenge rather than a chore. A 7-day brain reset is one way to start. Each day, focus on strengthening one of the 4 habits while maintaining small steps in the others. One day might emphasize going to bed early, another might focus on preparing nutrient-dense meals, another on practicing mindful focus, and another on scheduling stress-relieving breaks. By the end of a week, patterns begin to form, and the brain responds with greater clarity and energy. Extending these practices beyond the initial days turns them into long-term routines that continue to build memory strength. The journey of reversing memory loss is not about seeking miracle cures or quick fixes. It is about consistently choosing the behaviors that nourish and protect the brain. With each night of restorative sleep, each nutrient-rich meal, each moment of focused attention, and each breath taken to calm stress, you are rebuilding the foundation of memory. The brain rewards these efforts with sharper recall, clearer thinking, and renewed confidence. By replacing destructive habits with supportive ones, you create a future where memory does not fade, but flourishes, proving that decline is not inevitable when you choose to act with intention.